like to call this March 18th Saline City Council meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, present this evening is myself, Mayor Morrow, Council Members Burgoyne, Gearbaugh, Peters, Roth, and Tahar. Staff present, we have City Manager Campbell, Assistant Clerk DeHaan, City Treasurer Bennett, and Public Works Director Fordyce. For those of you in the audience, if you'd be sure to sign in the back prior to leaving, we would appreciate that. At this time, I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended. I have a few items I'd like to add under the discussion portion of our agenda this evening. The first of which would be talk about the Michigan Municipal League's Capital Convention that's coming up in April. The second is distribution of council packets and material. And the third is talk about an urban core transit meeting, which will be happening later this month on the 28th. And then, Mr. Gearbaugh, did you have a discussion item?
Yeah, I wanted to add property maintenance and building permits.
Okay.
And discussion on Thorncrest Apartments.
Property maintenance and Thorncrest Apartments, okay. Okay, that will come after urban core transit. And then, Mr. Roth, I see that you passed out a memorandum here regarding a subcommittee you're on for the Michigan Municipal League. Would you care to talk about this?
Yes.
Okay. So that will follow Mr. Gearbaugh's item about property maintenance and Thorncrest Apartments on Clark Street. Everyone clear on those? Mr. Burgoyne.
I'd like to add budget binders to this.
Okay. Well, it'll be a full discussion period. Okay, very good. Anything else then? All right, then I would seek a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Gearbaugh. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Tahar. Hearing no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it and the motion carries. Next, we need a motion to excuse the absence of Councilmember Rhodes.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Peters. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Roth. Hearing no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it and the motion carries. We now move on to a presentation by our friends from 212 Arts Center, located not quite in the heart of downtown Saline, but adjacent to the heart of downtown Saline. So it would be Director Margie Bovey and then Program Director Cindy Barnett. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. And operations manager. She's promoted.
Operations manager, excuse me.
No,
Well,
she's both.
oh, she's both.
Both, yeah.
I forgot to bring a whole bunch of brochures.
Oops, thank you.
Yes, since we're
I can
on
pass them out for you.
so,
I can pass them out for you. Give it up.
I got more than that.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, I was just thinking as I sat back there that the last time I was here, which was 7 years ago, before I even knew Sydney, we were applying for permission to open the 212 Arts Center. And we had a problem because there wasn't enough parking. So Attorney Grossman helped us out, figured out a way that we could cut a hole in the grass so we could indeed fit 6 cars into that parking lot at 212. Now we're at 216 and we rent the whole parking lot next to us, which is at the diner. And, well, not the whole parking lot. We let them park there once in a while when they have lunches and breakfast. But we're very lucky to have them next door to us. And that's how much we've expanded. And thank you to, he used to sit there, Attorney Grossman, for giving us some creative ideas on how to have an extra parking space. So many of you know who we are and what we do and where we are, but we all decided maybe some might like a refresher. So that's what Cindy and I are here to do. So as I said, we started 7 years ago at 212, right next door to Dr. Tim. And when we started running out of space, we moved to the other side of Dr. Tim at 216 West Michigan Avenue. And it's actually not that much of a bigger space, but it does provide us with a better structure. We now have a reception area where people can come in and register for classes and join us for coffee and conversation. When we were at 212, people still had to go into the kitchen from the parking lot, which wasn't that professional. And as we were just saying on the Lucy Ann Lance show, which we were on, we've been very popular. We're doing a routine, spring routine. Betty Yonke still greets people as they come into her kitchen because that's where she lives now at 212 Art Center. And she, of course, is very gracious and sends them on the way. She sends them to us, yeah. We are fully funded by the Cowan Slavin Foundation, which is a Boston-based 501c nonprofit foundation, which is a family foundation, that being my family. The founder was Albert Slavin, who is my dad. He has passed away in 1992. So we are fortunate enough to be totally funded, and we continue to build our arts community and to include more and more programs and creative people. I did imagine that we would be the seat of an arts community. I never in a million years imagined it would be this big of a community. We now serve at least 2,000 people a year in some way or another through our classes, our workshops, camps, and through our outreach programs to the schools, the libraries, parks and recs department, and community ed. And most recently to the Teen Center, which I was privileged to visit Friday. They have a wonderful program thanks to the work of David Rhodes and Peter Ruffner and some other wonderful people there. But we send, in the summer we have a program with the teens, and every Friday we send us one of our college students, Rob Kinsey, over, and he has a wonderful program going on there. So between the computers and the pool table, we've got a great art program going on all at the same time. It's a lively place. Our main focus at 212 is art education. That would be 2D, 3D, drawing, watercolor, acrylic, fibers, arts. We have a full pottery studio in the lower level. When you look at the building, you're probably wondering how we get all that in there, but we do. We feature an artist, a local artist, once every 2 months. And we also, some of you may have heard of our Cake Eaters organization, which is a Friday morning group, starts around 9 or 9:30. You're all welcome to join us anytime and eat cake and share in some of the excitement that goes around in the dialogues, conversation, friendship circles, about new art opportunities, some sharing creative ideas, and helping me with some creative ideas. And that's the basis for all of our volunteers also, that group of men and women. We also started this year, we also started a homeschool program, which is coordinated by our, we call her, and she is the principal of that homeschool, which is, her name is Cindy Baxter. That's a homeschool art program. And that has been small, but it's growing. And I just want to make it clear, some people think there's a membership fee for 212, and it does not work that way. You just can come and take classes, or just come and look around and test the waters and see if there's some creative outlet you would like to dabble in. Our current new adventure, you have a brochure, a poster or a mini poster in front of you, is the upcoming performance of the play Clutter, which is a new play written by Brian Cox, who some of you may know from the time when he was a reporter with the Saline Reporter. He has continued to, and now is with the Detroit Legal News. He and I have remained friends. I worked with him on the Saline Reporter many years ago, and he joined our Sunday evening writers group. he read the play to us, and I was certain that I had to produce that play. And that's what we have done. We cast it. One of the main characters is Pat Collins, a Saline native. And it's being performed at the Riverside Arts Center Theater on April 12th and 13th, starting at 8 p.m. And everyone is encouraged to come, and you can call us for tickets. So we do very big things in our location, and Cindy's going to tell you all about the big summer plans that we have and have had.
First of all, I'd like to say about Margie is that what's great about 212 and what's great about Margie is that when she gets an idea or she wants to get something done, she does it. And that's why I think 212 has been as successful as it has been, because she doesn't take her time, and she takes her time in making it sure she has a thorough, I don't know what to say. Plan. Thank you. We usually finish each other's sentences. But she has a thorough plan that what she wants to do, and she has people coordinated to do it. And she usually, it's always amazing that when we need somebody, they magically walk through the door. And that's actually how our 212 on the Go program started, is that we bought the van and we had the logos put all over it. And we said, oh, we should have an art program that goes to the parks. And we talked to Carla Scruggs, and when they had Parks and Rec had Rec on the Go, we joined with them, but we didn't have an instructor for that. And Margie said, well, you know, she knew it was going to happen, and within that week, somebody walked through the door, a college student, looking for a job, and that started the 212 on the Go. And that was over 6 years ago, and it's still going strong. We're currently serving the library 2 times a day on Mondays. We serve the Saline Community Ed 2 times a day on Tuesdays. On Thursdays, we're at the Downtown Music Series, and we work with Bob Rosenberger. With that, we'll be working with him. And then, and we do the chalk art on Thursday nights with the music series, and we have tattoos. Last summer, I was known as a tattoo lady because I would put tattoos on all the kids. And it's just a fun time to see the kids running around on Thursday night with the music going and creating art. And it's very nice to see the kids come out and be excited. And our other programs that we do is, this summer, what we're looking forward to is our collaboration with the Saline District Library. Every summer they have a summer reading program, and this year the theme is Dig Into Reading. And we usually try to create art that channels right into the theme of their reading program. And so this year, Keith McGuire is working with them to create Hobbit houses. And we will be advertising that, and we'll have something for the teens called Creature Doors, and that will be along the new path down by the library. And that's a fun thing to do, and it involves all of the 212 artists are involved. The Cake Eaters were asked to create some more doors, and they gladly are going to do that, and they're going to come help the public make more doors so they can have them throughout on either side of the path. And we do try to extend the artwork that we have within 212. We usually have a bi-monthly art show, and currently it is Peoples of the Earth, and that was an art challenge that was put out through 212 to all the artists at our Cake Eaters, and with another group called Running with Scissors. It's in Livonia. And if you have a chance, you should come see that. It's based on Peoples of the Earth is all the cultures, from the beginning of culture to right now. It can be interpreted however you want to interpret it. And the artwork that is in there right now is just amazing. It's always a wonder to see the challenges and what the artists come up with those. And so we have that twice. That will be there for 2 times, bi-monthly, excuse me. And then we also have artwork that's bi-monthly at My Favorite Cafe. And currently it is Nancy, I'm sorry, I can't think of her last name, but she is a watercolorist. And she does great work. And that changes. And so we always are trying to make sure that we bring art into the community. We are at the Saline Community Ed offices, and that is Val Mann currently, and she's bi-monthly as well. And we're at the library right now. Cindy Baxter's work is there. And as well as we have our Pottery Guild are in the the display cases. So we are always trying to reach out and make sure that people know who we are. They often think that we're a gallery, and we have to remind them that we are arts education based. And we are there from kids from 8 to 80, and I say 80, there, we have people who thought they were going to retire, but when they come into 212, they find out that they're not going to retire. They're going to end up just either teaching at 212 or coming to take classes. I'm just trying to, we do have an adult camp this summer, July 28th, it's a Sunday, and July 29th. We had a cry from the adults, so yeah, what about us? You know, you do all this fun stuff in the summer for the kids. And so we will be having, it's Michidona, Camp Michidona in Hillsdale. And it'll be fun. We have several teachers that will be coming in, and it'll be 2 days of art and recreation. There will be swimming and hiking, and we'll do plein air painting and drawing. And what's funny about this is we're actually having a camp this year. We previously called our camps, our children's camps, and then we decided not to do that this year. We called them workshops, because we had several little kids show up to our art camps last year expecting to hike and swim, and they were very disappointed, and we don't want to do that to our wonderful young people. But we do have a 2D workshop and a 3D workshop for kids that will be a week long in July, and one is in August. We have pottery camps, and we have Fairy Fun, which is a week-long workshop for girls, and they do all things fairy themed. And we also have adult classes. We have something that's called Happy Art Hour, which will be Thursday nights, and that is a more relaxed art class, I guess you could say, and each person will walk away with an acrylic painting, 2-hour class. And what's fun about that is you can bring beverages and make it as laid back as you want it to be, but you should walk away with an art project. And we also have another really nice series that's coming up, a self-portrait series. And each class is a different medium for a self-portrait. We have a found object, where you take objects that represent you, and that would be a self-portrait. We have Making Canavan. We'll be teaching an Andy Warhol self-portrait series. And I'm trying to think. Jean Canavan is also teaching a self-portrait class. And that's all gonna culminate in getting people to do self-portraits, and then in November we'll do a challenge, a self-portrait challenge, and all of those will be displayed in November before our holiday sale, which is another thing that we like to push, which runs for about a week and a half in December. And this year it generated close to $14,000 for our artists, and we do not take a commission from that. That all goes to our artists. They volunteer their time to the holiday sale, and for some people it helps them through the holidays, and that's great. And the artwork is just amazing, and the different mediums that you can get is great too. And we will be participating in Summerfest, which is another good opportunity for artists. We rent the tents, and we do the advertising for them, and let them, let people know that 212 will be there. And the artists can sell their work there, and then again, we do not take a commission from that. And we usually do a pottery demo and children's activities. So we do try to stay active within the community and promote our artists. That's the main reason why we're there, is to promote art and our artists. Because Saline is very blessed with many talented artists that some people don't even realize that we have here. If people are coming to retire in Saline. We've had several retirees come in and say, the reason why I picked this area is because of 212 Arts. And we currently have somebody whose husband's retiring, and she told him, we're moving to Saline because I want to be closer to 212. So I think that's great.
Terrific. Wonderful. Any questions or comments? No? Well, let me just say, and I think I speak for the entire City Council, one, thank you for being here this evening and having such a thorough presentation, but secondly, and more significantly, more importantly, thank you for all you do. Not just providing a resource for local artists, but also giving back and partnering with, Saline Parks and Rec and the library and all these other entities to again, not only promote yourselves and to promote your artists, but to make the community a better place. We're eternally grateful, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you all.
So next up, we have our friends from Saline Main Street to give a monthly update. We have both Board Chair Cindy Shupko and Main Street Director Bob Rosenberger. So thank you, Bob, for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting us. We appreciate it. It's always an honor and a pleasure to stand before this august body and get the chance to talk to you about something near and dear to my heart, Saline Main Street. As you said, Mr. Mayor, we're going to go through, take a look back at February and all the exciting things that happened. February was, as it always is at Saline Main Street, a month filled with lots of exciting things that were happening. You should have a packet in front of you, and I hope that I have my things in the same order as you have your things, but we'll start with the design team and run through the 4 different teams. And I would remind you, since this is only the second time that we've presented this way, that on each page there are 2 entities or 2 pieces for each team. The first is what we report to the state, to Michigan Main Street, and the second is the what's happening, the different work teams that are, and work plans that are happening on the different teams. So I want to start with design team, if that's okay with you all. Cool.
Very good.
So the design team, we had a grant from Let's Save Michigan. It's about Place program for $500 that we spent on the alley program, or the alleyway behind Brecken Grill and Mangiamo. That's coming along very nicely. The gate has been installed, and we're looking forward to finishing that this summer. The physical design master plan, the team continued its review of the physical design plan, focusing on design elements in downtown streetscape. The team is taking all of those elements into consideration whenever it does a project, for example, with the alley entrance. It's a cool and rainy evening, but it's not too early to start talking about flowers for the spring and the summer. The Be Bloomin' plan, we put out a request for proposal, an RFP. We sent it to 5 local companies and growers. We only received 1 response. That's the not so good news. The good news is that the cost is about the same. There's one extra cost, or one part that went up a little bit, and that's watering and maintenance, increased by $15 per basket, because they want to be sure that they have a secure and safe watering system. They will have 2 people, and it costs a little more to do that. They also recommended, this vendor recommended that we do a freeze-proof additive to the flowers. That particular vendor did that with the flowers in Ann Arbor, and they lasted several weeks longer, so we've chosen to do that as well. So the board accepted the proposal, and Be Bloomin' basket sponsorships will begin soon. Public improvements plan, research to enhance the existing trash receptacles. We're thinking about painting them and adding planters on the top. And of course, when this comes to, when the plan is solidified, we will come to council to seek approval. We're also talking about adding a kiosk for downtown events by Key Bank. And also we are working with the Department of Public Works to have the benches around downtown painted. The development of gathering spaces, I mentioned the archway at the alley, or the alley project, I should say. We were looking at doing an archway in the front, in the entranceway, and the team decided to put together something to complement the design of the archway across the street at Murphy's Crossing. We have an artist rendering, and it looks pretty nice, but the team then came up with a really neat idea. I love this idea, and that is to go to the Saline High School welding department to see if the arch could possibly be a project that they might design and help us build. And so that's using community, and I think that's a really nifty idea. Of course, we will come to council when we're prepared to present that for final approval. The business building workshop. Let me try that again. I can't do it. A building basics workshop that's going to be provided by Michigan Main Street is scheduled for April 29th. We haven't determined the exact time yet, but we are going to do it on the 2nd floor at Mangiamo's Italian Grill. The public is invited. This, again, will be put on by Michigan Main Street. We'll work with the chamber to promote this opportunity to business and building owners and to interested citizens, so they can learn about the benefits of historic preservation and also how to properly maintain and renovate historic buildings. And last on the list for the design team is the architectural treasure hunt. This is a neat idea that has been tried in other communities, and it's been a huge success. People go around and they find different architectural things that are on pictures, and it's been both fun and educational, and we're happy to announce that Councilman Jim Roth has volunteered to assist, so thank you, Mr. Roth, for that. The next team that I want to talk about is the BES, or Business and Economic Success Team. They were involved. We were involved with the Saline Area Chamber of Commerce on Saturday right here in this room. They held a franchise seminar, and we had a table, and we offered an opportunity tour. The opportunity tour was for people who are thinking about opening a business to look at the business spaces downtown that are available to them. And the franchise seminar was a great success. Kudos to the chamber for that. We have been putting together a business survey, and that is completed. Initially, it was planned to be done in February-March timeframe, about now, but we have postponed it temporarily until we can be sure that we are best implementing it in conjunction with a market analysis that's planned for later this summer. The market analysis is initiated through Michigan Main Street, but it's conducted by a professional consulting group that's hired by Michigan Main Street, and we were awarded that study after submitting an application in October of last year. Next team is the promotion team. The promotion team is always busy. Music Under the Arch continues with a presentation by the Ben Daniels Band on Thursday this week, on the 21st. His band is the headliner. Kate Peterson, I love this name, from Nervous But Excited, is the opening act. Tickets are going well. The first two, by the way, this is the third Thursday in every month. The first two programs were sold out. It looks like we may be headed that way with Ben Daniels, but there are tickets still available, so anyone who wants to purchase tickets can go to www.musicunderthearch.com. The summer music series, the concert lineup is compiled. Great news, a lot of the favorites that people had are coming back, and even more great news is that we have some other bands or some other acts that are that we've scheduled that are being added, and they're really pretty darn exciting. This event happens every Thursday evening, June 6th through August 22nd. We will not have it on the 4th of July or on the 8th of August because we don't want to interfere with Summerfest. The Wicked Kickin' Hoedown plans continue. The square dance will have, well, it'll have square dancing and food and music and mechanical bull riding and dueling banjos and plenty of fun. It's scheduled for Saturday, October 26th in downtown Saline. We're still working on the venue, and of course we'll come to you when we're finished with that, figuring that out. The Mastodon Mayhem Run. Plans continue for that. We're proud to announce that we've been invited by the Celtic Festival to make this a part of the Celtic Festival, I think replacing their 5K run. Yes. And we're really excited about that. We will come to the board for final approval on that probably in April. Ladies' Night Out, as you probably know, there are two Ladies' Nights Out. The first one I think that's right, Ladies' Nights Out. And the first one was in February. It was successful. We have another one scheduled for October. We have two ladies who've stepped up to help with the planning of that, two co-chairs, and they are Teresa Lickert from Oxygen Plus and Ann Brandon from Bling Thing. And October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, so we will be tying it into that, Ladies' Night into that. I think it's going to be a night to paint the town pink. The District Public Relations and Marketing Strategy, just to let you know that Saline Main Street is committing $1,000 towards the Community Promote Saline program, so excited about that. Oktoberfest, October seems like a long ways away, but we are working on that. The team is lining up headliner entertainment, and the banner over the street work continues. We're looking at that in detail. And then the organization team is the last of our 4 teams that I'm going to report on this evening. I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that we have lots of volunteer hours. We have great volunteers. wonderful people who help us out, like 212 Arts, and there were a total of 323 volunteer hours dedicated to Saline Main Street and the projects that we do in February. So thank you to all of our volunteers. Fundraising, we continue to raise funds. We raised $2,250 in public, $3,300 in private, and sponsorships equaling $5,125 in the month of February. We created a new board position, and David Fries, a current board member, has taken the position of vice president, and we're excited to announce that. The building image work plan is all about making sure that people know what we're all about. So we have a monthly newsletter that goes out obviously every month. We do blogs and Facebook and Twitter posts. I can say that, yes I can. We're scheduling presentations with government agencies around the area, and also with community-driven organizations. And we're excited about getting to talk with them about Saline Main Street as well. We continue our fundraising efforts, and we're proud to announce that to date we have commitments from Forcia, La Fontaine, Mectron, Bemis Farms, Flat Out, Liebherr, and they total $9,500. We had our first annual meeting in February. Thank you to so many of you who came and showed your support, and we appreciate your being there. We always want to do things to the best of our ability, so we're always looking for ways to improve. If you have any ideas on how we can improve on our annual meeting, please feel free to give me a call, drop me an email, or just stop me out on the street and say, hey, Bob, I have an idea. The Michigan Main Street Resource Team Visit is scheduled for June 25th through the 27th. It's Michigan Main Street will be here along with National Main Street, a contingency from National Main Street. They will be visiting our city and conducting a resource team visit. The idea here is that they will help community leaders and stakeholders devise strategies to make the best use of our local financial and human resources for revitalizing or keeping our downtown alive and vibrant. It's a 3-day visit. They will be examining information about our community and our downtown. They'll study plans, interview key stakeholders and leaders, and of course they'll talk with us here at Main Street and the people involved in our program. At the end of the visit, they'll report their findings and discuss ideas with us. And last but not least, Saline Main Street is on the move. We're moving. We're going to be moving from our current office to the space next to the downtown diner. That gives us a little more visibility. It's a lot easier to find, and it also gives us a space that's large enough so we can hold all of our team meetings, and that's exciting as well. Questions?
Terrific. Thank you, Bob. Any questions this evening? No, appreciate the report, and I seem to be articulating this every month, but for those of you in the audience, those of you who will be watching this meeting at home, and for those on the dais, if you're interested in wanting to contribute to the success and vitality of our downtown, which is what makes us who we are, please consider getting involved in Main Street. You could volunteer for the board, you could volunteer at an event, but probably last, but most importantly, volunteer to serve on one of those 4 teams that Bob talked about this evening. And if you have any questions, concerns, you want to know more, contact you, Bob, or Cindy, or probably anyone on the board for that matter. Okay? Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we move on now to citizen comments on agenda items. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time and make comment or question on an item that appears on this agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record.
Mary Hess, and new business 1343 regarding the Memorial Day Parade and Memorial Day Run. I noticed that the day run is requesting 3 hours from 8 to 11 at $368 approximately to be waived of cost. And the parade, George Perrault has put in from 10 o'clock to 11:30 at the cost of $2,258. This is probably the most expensive Memorial Day that I can remember being on council, the cost, and really the shares are much more. It appears the toilet's going to be for both, and the police officers, I don't see auxiliary. But That being Mr. Prote's not here, so of course I am on the auxiliary, and I work very hard on the Poppy Fund. When it comes to Memorial Mile, I am requesting that the council put the money that would go to a military to the Veterans Hospital or the Poppy Fund. The Poppy Fund, in fact, carries all, besides the brain problems, all veterans through our VA hospital. I help with the bingo thing, and I do poppies, and I would like to have whatever portion that was going to go to the servicemen to, apparently the commander had mentioned this one, but I'm hoping on behalf of the auxiliary and the Poppy Fund that that portion go should it be passed. And I really think there's going to be a time overrun because if they're going till 11 o'clock and the parade starts at 10 for the marathon or the mile run on the application, that be clarified. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hess. Are there any additional citizen comments on agenda items?
Hello, my name is Amber Sotelo. I'm from 953 Arboretum Drive, and I'd like to speak just for a moment about the progress the Celtic Festival has made since our last meeting. We have signed 3 bands so far that will be performing as our headliners on Saturday. They are Soulless, Brother, and Blackthorn. And if you'll refer, Mr. Peters has some little cards that he had handed out. These are cards that we distributed in time for St. Patrick's Day to our downtown businesses, and then also to Connor O'Neill's, and then 2 other restaurants that serve Irish fare, and we're having large St. Patrick's Day festivals. These are the Claddagh restaurants in Toledo and in Novi. So these were we pass these cards around, and these will be our little card stocks we'll be using leading up to the event. I also wanted to speak to our collaboration that we're very excited about with the Saline Main Street for the Mastodon Mayhem Run, and I will be drafting a letter that we can give to the council with our understanding and kind of detailing our collaboration with them, as this will be replacing an event that our portion of the 5K event that we had previously asked permission for, so we'll detail that collaboration. We are continuing our fundraising efforts, and those are progressing nicely. And we just wanted to just take a moment just to give you a little update on how we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other citizen comments on agenda items, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The following consent agenda will normally be adopted without discussion. However, at the request of any citizen or council member, any item may be removed from the consent agenda for council discussion.
Mayor, I'd like to remove 1340.
1340. Okay, so that's the liquor licenses. And that will become now the last business under the new business section of the agenda. Actually, no. If we're following the number of the agenda item, it would actually be the first item under new business, excuse me. So that will be the first item we deal with following the adoption of the consent agenda, excuse me, just for clarification. So is there a motion now to approve the consent agenda as amended?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Tahar. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Gearbaugh. Hearing no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Moving on to new business, item C-13-40. This is a motion to acknowledge receipt of the March 11th, 2013 memo from City Clerk Hill to inform the Michigan Liquor Control Commission that Spotted Dog Winery, Ruby Tuesdays, Max in Saline, Maplewood Lanes, Mangiamo Italian Grill, Dan's Downtown Tavern, Bolaco Sushi, Saline American Legion, Brecken Grill, and Cancun Mexican Grill are all in compliance with local ordinance requirements, and that the Saline City Council has no objections to the renewal of their 2013 liquor licenses.
Move to acknowledge receipt.
Moved by Mr. Gearbaugh. Is there a second?
Second.
seconded by Mr. Roth. Discussion. Mr. Gearbox.
I simply wanted to acknowledge the report because it's great that there are no incidences of any issues or concerns with any of the licenses, or have there been any complaints or, I guess, items that the police or the fire department had to deal with. I think that's pretty good for us as a community to have that, where we've had concerns in Ann Arbor and in other areas. I just want to thank our local restaurants and the individuals for providing that type of safe environment for all of our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbox. Mr. Burgoyne.
If that's the case, I think we should move to acknowledge receipt and inform the Liquor Commission as noted, because we don't want to just acknowledge receipt. We also want to take action.
Well, the motion also states that we have no objections to their renewal being processed.
Right, but that's not what I heard as a motion. I just heard to acknowledge receipt.
Well, I mean, it would be in the motion. If you, so.
That's fine, as long as it's fine, the
Okay.
way it's read.
Okay.
Mr. Gearbox has no objections. So we have a motion on the floor to acknowledge receipt, moved by Mr. Gearbox, seconded by Mr. Roth. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries. Moving on to new business item 13-43, Memorial Day Parade and Memorial Day Mile Run. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the application for community events for the annual Memorial Day Parade from George Perrault on behalf of the Saline American Legion, to acknowledge receipt of the March 6, 2013 memo from Police Chief Rennick, the February 25, 2013 memo from Fire Chief Heft, and the March 13, 2013 memo from Public Works Director Fordyce, to approve or not approve the annual Memorial Day Parade to take place on Michigan Avenue on May 27th, 2013, beginning at 10 a.m., subject to the following conditions. 1, that the required parade permit for the closing of Michigan Ave be obtained from MDOT. 2, that the traffic engineer issue the necessary temporary traffic control orders for the appropriate street closings and detours. 3, that a certificate of insurance be provided, naming the City of Saline as an endorsed additional insured party for this event, which will be on file in the clerk's office, and that the city fees for services over and above the normal operating cost estimated at $2,258.74 be waived. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Moved to approve by Mr. Peters, seconded by Mr. Burgoyne. I don't believe we have anyone from the Saline American Legion here, but we do have some individuals representing the group who is requesting that we have a Memorial Day Mile Run. If they would like to maybe come forward and talk very briefly about what they're proposing, and if council members have any questions, we'll be happy to entertain those. Oh, okay.
Yeah, the artwork Sydney's passing out is just fresh off the press from 212 Arts today. It's our logo for the race. Appreciate the opportunity to address you this evening. Wanted to kind of clarify some things that were brought up earlier, as well as talk about the kind of the timeline for the event that we're planning. What we really would like to do is run a race down Michigan Avenue while it's already closed. What we're looking at is, from my conversations with the police department, they closed the road down at about 9:30. We would simply take to the road at 9:30, be off of Michigan Avenue for the start of the parade by 10 o'clock. We envision 2 races. We envision one race starting at 9:30. We're calling it an elite mile. We have some former Olympians that may be joining us. We certainly are targeting some of our local high schoolers, as well as some local college runners and post-collegiate runners to come and participate in that event. That would be very quick, hopefully very, very quick. And we'd be looking at stopping the timing on that at about 9:37, taking to the streets for an open mile at 9:40, having everybody off of the course by 10 o'clock so the parade can start with no disruption from us whatsoever. With the run, what we're planning on doing is basically starting everybody out at the intersection of Ann Arbor Street and Michigan Avenue, heading east on Michigan Avenue down to Old Creek. They'll essentially do a 180 at the barricade that's already there, come back and finish down towards Lewis Avenue or somewhere down by Lewis on Michigan Avenue again. So the entire race course will be on Michigan Avenue in front of the crowds, highlighting the downtown area of Saline, and really be a good opportunity for people to get out and run on Michigan Avenue. We, as runners, run on the side of Michigan Avenue all the time on the sidewalks. We don't often get the opportunity to run on Michigan Avenue, so this would be our big draw to have runners come to downtown Saline. From a race standpoint, we are looking to use this as a way to raise funds for 3 entities in the Saline, well, 2 of them in the Saline area, 1 of them on an overall basis. The 2 Saline area entities that we're looking to raise funds for are Saline Community Education as well as the Saline Police Department. And then we've also, in consultation with the American Legion, selected another organization, Resurrecting Lives Foundation, that specializes in the treatment and diagnosis of veterans who have returned from Iraq and Afghanistan with traumatic brain injuries and helping them more particularly diagnose those injuries and exactly what is going on with those injuries to help them seek the treatment that they need in order to fully recover from that injury. 20 to 25% of veterans returning from those 2 areas do suffer traumatic brain injuries, so it's our thought that this will be money well spent and money well extended in that particular arena. We have, as I said, we've done this in consultation with the American Legion. They have been very kind in allowing us to really participate in their day because this is their day. We wanted to hopefully add to it and bring additional crowds downtown. My personal vision for the race is, as people are crossing the finish line, every finisher will get an American flag. My vision is you have this line of people down Michigan Avenue in Saline that have just finished running this race holding American flags, cheering on the veterans as they come through as part of their parade. So that's kind of my vision. Again, another way to highlight downtown Michigan or downtown Saline and also give back to the veterans on their day and also give back to the city of Saline.
Great. Very good. Are there any questions? Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay. So we have a motion moved by Mr. Peters, seconded by Mr. Burgoyne to approve. Is there any discussion? Mr. Roth.
I just noted in both of them, they listed several officers and time. I was just wondering if these people were already working that day. And the charges was just put to this event.
I believe Mr. Campbell will be able to answer your question, Mr. Roth. Just give us 1 second.
Or this is additional help needed for the race.
Right, this is additional help needed. Right down here is 5K run, 1 sergeant, 7 officers. So that is additional to our standard. Typically, we have a minimum 2 officers on. Some days with the swing, with the gap fill, we'll have 3 at certain times, but certainly not 8 officers. But we'll have those will be additional officers.
Do you have a follow-up, Mr. Roth?
I was just thinking that's quite high number of officers needed. Second thing is in the memo, according to their budget, this is over budget by about 10%. And I just wanted to make sure we all knew that this cost is 10% over what was been planned from previous years.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Mr. Gearbaugh?
Just a question, are we actually closing the road any earlier than we normally do? Don't we normally close at 9:30?
Right, we're not doing anything
different.
That's why they're made. That's why should work very well because it's about the same time.
So really, the cost increase this year is more tied in with cost of increase in wages and everything, or?
Well, I can't. I apologize. I don't have last year's number, so I can't. I don't know if it was but it would certainly be in the ballpark. But I don't know if it was.
No, I figured as long as it's
8,000
during the same thing, there's no real change to it. There's really not a change in cost and such,
Right.
except for increase in inflation.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. Additional comments or questions or any discussion? No? Okay, well then we have a motion on the floor made by Peters, seconded by Burgoyne to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it and the motion carries unanimously. Now we move on to item B under new business 13-43. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the application for community event for the Memorial Day Mile Run from Derek Stearns on behalf of Saline Community Ed, to acknowledge receipt of the March 6, 2013 memo from Police Chief Rennick, the February 25th memo from Fire Chief Heft, the March 13th, 2013 memo from Public Works Director Fordyce to approve or not to approve the Memorial Day Mile Run to take place on Michigan Avenue on May 27th, 2013, beginning at 8 a.m., subject to the following conditions. 1, that the required street closure permit for Michigan Ave be obtained through MDOT. 2, that the traffic engineer issue the necessary temporary traffic control orders, for the appropriate street closings and detour. 3, that a certificate of insurance be provided by Saline area schools, naming the city of Saline as an endorsed additional insured party for this event, and that the city fees for this service over and above, I'm butchering this one, the normal operating costs estimated at $368.37 be waived or paid by the applicant.
Move to approve and waive.
It's been moved to approve and waive by Mr. Burgoyne. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Har. I should acknowledge, I probably should have had Mr. Stearns and Ms. Barnett come up and do your presentation on item B, not item A. So my apologies, but I think you addressed everyone's questions and concerns and provided a very thorough report, so thank you. Is there any discussion related to this motion or questions for staff? No? Okay, then we have a motion to approve and to waive, moved by Burgoyne, seconded by Tahar. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Moving on to new business, item 13-44. This is fiscal year operating and capital improvement budgets for the Saline area fire. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the March 11th, 2000 memo from City Treasurer Bennett regarding approval of the Fire Department FY14 operating and capital budgets and Fire Special Assessment Resolution Number 1. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Gearbock to acknowledge receipt. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Peters. I think the memo pretty much speaks for itself. However, if there are questions, be happy to entertain those. Mr. Burgoyne.
The memo says that the proposed budget includes reimbursement to the city for clerical support services. And I think that summary is just a sheet or two. I would like to see a copy of that, not now, but just in the mailbox.
Okay. I don't see any reason why we couldn't get that copied to all of council. If you would take care of that, I'd appreciate it, Treasurer Bennett. Thank you. Additional comments or questions regarding this motion? Okay. And no discussion? All right, then we have a motion on the floor moved by Gearboss, seconded by Peters to acknowledge receipt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. Moving on, we now need a motion to approve or not to approve the proposed Saline Area Fire Department operating and capital improvement budgets for fiscal year 2013-2014 in the total amount of $1,179,245, and to recommend that the Saline Area Fire Board adopt or not adopt said budgets.
Move to approve and to adopt.
Been moved by Gearbock to approve and adopt. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Roth. Any questions or any discussion from any member of council? Ms. Tahar.
Thank you. Just a comment. As Mr. Burgoyne noted, the memo says that costs for the full-time clerk for fire are included in the budget. And we have, just to reiterate, we have discussed the need for there to be attention paid to backing up the knowledge and expertise of that clerk, and I hope that emphasis will continue.
Thank you, Ms. Tahar.
Thanks.
Additional comments? No? Then we have a motion on the floor moved by Gearboss, seconded by Roth to approve and adopt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. Finally, we need a motion to approve and adopt or not to adopt Resolution Number 1, Special Assessment for Fire Protection 2013-2014, setting a public hearing on Monday, May the 6th, 2013, to hear and consider any objections to the city's proposed share of fire protection in the amount of $332,536 for fiscal year 2013-2014.
Move to approve and adopt.
Been moved by Gearboss, seconded by Ms. Tahar. Discussion. This is pretty clear cut, okay? If there's no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries. Moving on to new business item 13-45. This is a request to purchase MERS credit service by Don Lupi. And I should note before I read the motion, you have a revised memorandum that was at your desk that Mr. Campbell distributed prior to this evening's council meeting. So please refer to that. And this will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the March 6, 2013 memo from City Manager Campbell and the March 5th, 2013 memo from Don Lupi to approve or not to approve the request of Don Lupi to purchase additional credit service as outlined in his 2 applications for additional credit service with a calculation dated of March the 1st, 2013 at a total cost to the employee for both applications in the amount of $119,814, and that the City Council has read, understands, and approves or does not approve the governing body's resolution on page 2 of each of Mr. Lupi's applications for additional credit service. Is there a motion? We'll ask again for a motion.
I'll move to acknowledge receipt for discussion at this point.
Okay. Move to acknowledge receipt by Mr. Gearbaugh. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Tahar. Discussion or questions? Mr. Gearbaugh?
Just a question. I mean, we've done this for other employees, and I think some of this is fine, where they're using their money to purchase it and to get additional service, but we are, as a city, continuing to be liable for it. Is there any recommendations or such that we should be looking at in terms of how many years we would allow an individual to buy out? I'm not sure what we've done in the past at this point.
If I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been as little as 6 months to 5 years. Some individuals have purchased multiple times, come to the city council 2 or 3 times over a handful of years, for instance. We have not looked at it. I mean, they are, as it says, the individual, the employee is paying that money out of their pocket. There is a slight risk that if they live beyond the actuarial study, then there's a potential that the city would be liable for that addition.
Yeah, my concern is just looking at a reasonable number of years at which we would do it, and I think since we've been using 5, I think this is a fairly appropriate process. I wouldn't like to go more beyond that, because I think we start getting into an issue of, is the value that we're doing attributive to the type of time that we're getting from it, so, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. Are there any additional comments or questions? Ms. Tahar?
Question, just the revision in the memo is Detective Lupi will not be eligible for retirement or retiree full medical insurance benefits?
Right,
That was changed because?
Because in the contract, I believe at 20 years, they can have 80% funded as opposed to fully funded.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Burgoyne, did you have a question?
I thought MERS had its own limit, perhaps 5 years for something, some other limit for military service, that type of thing, some other limit for credit from another jurisdiction. But isn't the 5-year a limit by MERS also?
I don't know for sure.
I thought it was.
Our particular plan allows us to buy 5 years generic with absolutely no other service.
Right.
In my case, I'm buying the 5 years generic plus the year and 9 months from my past employer.
But you couldn't buy 6 years generic because MERS has a limit of 5, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Burgoyne. Additional comments or questions for staff? Okay, then we're going to have to take this in 2 motions. The first motion was moved by Gearbaugh, seconded by Tahar to acknowledge receipt of the memorandum. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. Now I need a motion to approve or not to approve, and then subsequently to approve or not to approve. Is there a motion?
Move to approve and approve.
Moved by Tahar to approve and approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Burgoyne. Any discussion? I would just add to piggyback on something that Mr. Gearbaugh indicated, that this is an amenity, and I use that word deliberately, that we have provided to our staff Obviously, it comes with a significant burden to the employee because they have to buy in. And as Mr. Campbell indicated, there is a slight, but there is still an existing liability that potentially the city could incur sometime down the road. But I'm happy to continue this practice and reward employees who have provided exceptional service to the city. So I will be voting in favor of the motion. Additional comments? No? Then all those in favor to approve and approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries. Moving on to our last new business item, 13-46, Sheffield Square, a request for waiver of penalty and interest. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the March 1st, 2013 memo from City Treasurer Bennett regarding a request to waive late fees for Sheffield Square condo via U.S. Postal Service, and the February 28th, 2013 letter from the United States Postal Service to approve or deny the request for waiver of the penalty and interest in the amount of $273.48 for Sheffield Square condo late payment of their utilities, water and sewer. Is there a motion?
I will move to approve the request for waive.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Peters to approve. Is there a second? I'll ask one more time. Is there a second? Then the motion to approve dies. Is there a subsequent motion that a council member would like to offer? I'll ask one more time. Is there a subsequent motion a member of council would like to offer?
Any comment?
I actually need to get a motion here. I think technically speaking, I apologize, Mr. Peters. If there's no motion, then this issue, this motion dies for lack of a mover and lack of a second. Okay? If you'd like to clarify or extend your remarks, Mr. Peters, you could do so under the discussion.
Just to make sure I understand this correctly, we do have a letter here from the post office that says it was probably a mistake that they did not mail the bills to the recipient. So how can you pay a bill that you didn't receive? So that's why I was in support of this particular motion.
Okay. Thank you for commenting. Okay, we move on to discussion items. First discussion item is commission and committee reports. Are there any commission and committee reports? Mr. Peters.
Just one committee for the Celtic Festival. I think that this joining up the Mastodon Mayhem run with the Celtic Festival is a very creative way to share resources, and it shows real teamwork within the community. And this also saves the city several $1,000s because the Celtic Festival was going to run its 5K in the streets, which we have a waived fee for the police and the DPW, and now we don't need to use that money. There will be no waived fees required for the Mastodon run down at the park. So again, this is just a nice example of how, together we are stronger. If we can collaborate like this, it pays off.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Peters. Are there any other commission or committee reports? Mr. Gearbaugh.
Just real quick, on the Planning Commission, we discussed the special use permit will be coming to the City Council, I don't know if next meeting or what, for the property on Woodland Drive related next to the old UAW, and in between next to it, the Church of Latter-day Saints. They're asking for the use of that property as recreational use. They're intending to purchase a portion of what was a UAW. So it all got all anonymous agreement out of the Planning Commission, and I think it'll be a welcome part for that piece of property. Then we also discussed our goals for the coming year, and a couple of them were adjusted, so we're looking forward to doing some of that activities for the coming year.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. Are there any other commission or committee reports? Mr. Roth.
The Cable Commission met this past week, and new equipment's going to be ordered for, and has been ordered for updating to the digital version for City Hall, and it's a possibility that they can broadcast our meetings live, but it'll be about a 5-minute delay. And I also welcome anybody any concerns that they have regards the cable service that we have, pass information on to me, your thoughts and ideas on to me, so I can represent you at our Cable Commission meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Roth.
Mr. Morrow, can I ask one
Absolutely.
question? Are you also looking into additional, such as the projector and such, so it's integrated into the new system?
It was mentioned about replacing this projector, so that's probably been discussed likewise.
Thank you.
So it should be a much higher definition resolution being broadcast.
Okay. I was just curious to make sure that was part of that, because we've had concerns with it in the past.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Roth. there any other commission or committee reports? No? Then we move on to reports or other announcements. Yes, Mr. Gearbaugh.
As you know, I've been bringing to council's attention some concerns that we've been having with, I guess, individuals getting the proper permits and such for construction work that's being done, and we've discovered this problem more to be consistent with some of our contractors and such. As a result of a meeting that I had with the building department and Mr. Campbell, the mayor, and Mr. Fordyce, we're going to be looking forward to providing additional information for builders and homeowners within the historic district about what we need to do and what should be a process that they're aware of so that this won't happen in the future. My other concern was we've had some issues and concerns with homes and buildings and such that are either out of compliance or having damage or such, or just a complete issue that is a building problem. So we're looking at potentially talking about property maintenance approach, something that may be an ordinance in which we can have enforcement for that. Currently, there are some concerns, and one of them being Thorncrest Apartments, where our first responders are having issues with attending at those buildings, and so we need to look at what is happening there and also what we have in terms of the ability to determine whether or not there's problems with the buildings or other issues and concerns. And then we also need to be able to look at our own homes and rental properties that potentially are safety issues or hazards to individuals. Mr. Campbell may contribute to more about the Thorncrest Apartments, but that is one of my concerns, is that we're having a lot of issues, and our concern first must be for our individuals that are out there on the street fronts for us, but we also must be concerned for our citizens who are experiencing issues with neighbors or problems that we as a council or we as a city cannot address properly without having the right tools in place.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. I'm going to actually turn it over to Mr. Campbell very briefly to talk about again, proposed property management ordinances and policies, just so that everyone on the dais is familiar and comfortable with what Mr. Gearbaugh is referring to. But Mr. Gearbaugh and I, we did meet with city staff, with Mr. Campbell, with Mr. Fordyce, Mr. Rubel, and then our code enforcement officer and building inspector, Mr. Tillman, prior to tonight's meeting. And the issue came up. And so Mr. Gearbaugh and I think there would be some merit to, at some point in the future, having a work meeting and discussing this issue and determining whether there's some consensus from council as to whether or not we should move forward. So I want to turn it over to Mr. Campbell briefly to talk about the issue, and then I want to do a quick round robin to see if that's an issue that council members would like more information on, would like to discuss, in the hopes that potentially we could move forward in adopting some new policies. So Mr. Campbell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, first of all, I mean, we as residents of Saline enjoy a overall very pristine, very blessed community. But there are instances when buildings, homes, businesses, whether they're private, they're owned by the residents, or whether it's a rental property, sometimes maybe they're whether paint or you know, some sort of construction, the soffit, whatever is failing, needs to be repaired. We don't have really in our, for lack of a better term, our building department doesn't have in their tool belt, if you will, to help enforce and say, hey, unless it's a life-threatening health and safety issue, we don't have the ability to say, you need to fix this. And so that's been a discussion a little bit about how we might do that. And this would be, again, this would be across the board for all properties, whether they're rentals, whether they're your home, those types of things. And so that's, in a nutshell, that's what it would do. It would allow us to be able to enforce some codes that we don't currently have on the books, as they say, to mandate that folks make necessary repairs to their home or their buildings, their property.
So what we talked about briefly earlier this evening would be to have some sort of work meeting in which we would probably have Mr. Rubel there, and also Mr. Tillman, who's our code enforcement officer, building inspector. And he actually, when a former city manager was here, did up a memorandum on this issue. So it's already been looked at to an extent, but we're just trying to gauge support as to whether or not council would like to convene sometime down the road, hopefully in the not too distant future, a meeting to discuss the possibility of adopting these policies and ordinances. Mr. Burgoyne.
Do we have sample ordinances, health and safety or something like that? What is the basis for the new ordinance? Right now we have codes that are nationally adopted codes and so forth, and we've adopted a version of it. So this would add something that would be a local ordinance to supplement that, and then what would that be based on? Health and safety, or do we have samples of that?
We can, it's through the state. Again, it's we can enforce the building code, but the property maintenance is separate from that. So it's essentially, that, just like it says, it's to maintain the property, not to, once it's built, then it goes into maintenance mode, if you will. And so that's what it applies to. It's certainly, yeah, we would certainly provide proposed sample languages if council wanted us to look into.
So obviously, you all have heard from Mr. Gearbaugh and myself. We're interested in moving forward and looking at this, obviously with no guarantees that anything would be adopted, but we think there's merit in looking at this. What does the rest of council feel? Mr. Roth?
I feel we should move forward on this.
Okay. Ms. Tahar?
Yes, I think it's probably a sticky wicket, judging from news reports that we read about issues that have come up in Ann Arbor or Ypsilanti about this kind of issue. So I think it's worth exploring,
Okay.
but it could be complicated.
Yeah, it certainly requires a significant amount of finesse, no doubt about it. Mr. Peters?
Yeah, I think it's worth some more communication, as long as we don't entertain the thought of maybe becoming like an association. We deal with appearances and people's personal choices. I'm up for more communication, but I want to learn more.
Mr. Burgoyne?
Well, I'd like staff to come prepared and to suggest something.
Okay.
And maybe, I'm not sure we need a work meeting so much as provide us something in advance for comments or something like that. I think we have some other issues that we do need some work meetings on. So I'd rather just receive the information, the suggested information, do a little bit of back and forth, and then bring it up as a topic.
I appreciate your comments, Mr. Burgoyne. I personally would prefer a work meeting on this topic, where we could have more of a free exchange of ideas and have more of a discussion. But what's the rest of council feel? Gentlemen, are you comfortable with having a work meeting on this?
Work meeting.
But again, have some materials that
Right.
we can look at, like we normally do. It's typical.
Okay.
Yes,
All right, and then as a follow-up to piggyback on that comment, Mr. Burgoyne, in advance of our special meeting next week, I'll work with Clerk Hill so that we have for your review on, what is that, the 18th? No, 25th, excuse me, today's the 18th. We'll have a sheet available on the 25th of all of the proposed work meetings that we've discussed or that council members have suggested, so that hopefully we can prioritize those and develop a schedule moving forward as to when we can meet and discuss those various issues. Okay? Mr. Gearbaugh, did you have anything else on this issue?
No, it's just what's come up is that there's been some concerns, and unfortunately for me, I've had individuals contact me, and some of these items, I think, without the proper way of handling it, individuals feel that frustration with the city, and we're right there with them, but because the way our laws are, and we do due process and everything else, we need to make sure that we're handling it. And there's no way that I want to have a restriction of an ordinance that's overpowering or whatever. It's more the idea of where we do have major problems, which is usually where we run into it, it's having the ability to be able to address the situation properly and not at a costly amount for the city.
Mr. Gearbaugh, on the historic district front, would you keep us, and when I say us, this council, abreast to when that letter goes out and how we communicate with our not only our homeowners, but also the contractors that do work in those.
Yeah, and part of that, we're working with the whole issue of getting it online to identify clearly where historic districts are and such like that. But I think the word's getting around, and I think some of the communication is now starting to address the concern.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other reports or other announcements? And I would indicate, friends or colleagues, that we do have sort of a laundry list below reports and other announcements to get to. Okay, so then the first one that I added this evening was the MML Capital Conference, which will take place on April 9th and 10th at the Lansing Center in downtown Lansing. I'm suspecting that just about everyone here has been to a Michigan Municipal League function and or has attended the Capital Conference, but I think most of us would probably be attending just on Wednesday the 10th. But it is a very worthwhile and very educational forum. And they do an excellent job of keeping us abreast to potential legislation that would affect our ability to do business at the state level. So if your schedule permits, I strongly encourage you to attend. You can register yourselves online, or you can contact Justine Myra, Mr. Campbell's administrative assistant, and she can register you.
April 10th or May 10th?
April, excuse me. Yeah, just next month, so it's very timely. Any questions on that? No? Okay. Then we move on to council packets. And again, let me preface by saying that the email that I sent out to you all late last week was a bit of a faux pas, and I should have just proposed this as a discussion item this evening. So again, my apologies. I'm hoping that maybe this evening we can develop some consensus and reach a conclusion or a happy median between what we currently do and what I think we should be doing in regards to the distribution of council materials, specifically the support material and agenda for council meetings. As you're aware, and of course for those of you in the audience who are not aware, what we currently do is every week your material, whatever's in your mailbox, is put into a blue envelope and then of course delivered to your home by the police officers. And if that is still your prerogative, I see no problem in continuing that practice. I, for one, am very comfortable with things being just placed in my mailbox, and I can easily come up to City Hall and pick them up. I understand now that that's not necessarily feasible for all of you. What I would like to recommend, though, is on weeks in which we do not have council meetings or do not have special work meetings, that those packets not be delivered. I don't think it's an appropriate use of the clerk's time or the police department's time to first compile that information or mail and then have it delivered. And I'll just give you an example. 2 weeks ago when we didn't have a meeting, I received a blue envelope that contained my calendar, a piece of junk mail, and a magazine advertising the sale of backhoes. I don't necessarily think that that was pertinent enough to have somebody put in a blue envelope and then deliver it to my home. But again, that would only happen on those weeks where this legislative body was not meeting. So that's my recommendation, but again, it's a determination that it needs to, well, it's just sort of a balance here. I would like to get a consensus, and then two, obviously, whatever your prerogative is as to how you receive your information, we're happy to accommodate. I should also acknowledge that I think the goal moving forward at some point, and I don't think it's going to happen overnight, is that we get to a point where most of the information is provided electronically. That therefore there's less of a cost and then less of a burden on our employees to compile this paper and then distribute it. So, but I would be interested in your thoughts. Mr. Gearbaugh.
My concern with this was, one, that I think this would be a good discussion that we have, because the idea would be to push towards an electronic process, because I personally would just rather have everything scanned and sent to me, and we could do that in one swell shot, whatever. We can't talk tonight, I'm sorry. Sure. But the other idea is that I would have that information, because then it's more searchable, I would have it, and if we needed to, readers are cheap enough now. We don't have to buy laptops and everything, but we could potentially, with the savings that we're going to incur from not delivering these, have readers available for any members of council or whatever. I was concerned that this change was something that we basically have done for a long time and wasn't sure what was that triggered it. We do have a lot of other aspects of this where we have our police officers out in the department, out in the city, traveling around, and I didn't see an issue or concern with that. I thought it was a better way of representation, and the more we have our presence out there and actually knocking on doors and things, it kind of raises a question for people and they see what's going on. I understand there are changes and such, and that's fine, as long as we as council are talking about it. The fact that it was kind of made as a one-person decision raised a significant issue and concern with me, so I'm glad that we're talking about this tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. Additional comments, questions? Mr. Burgoyne.
I do agree with you that on the weeks that we don't have a meeting, we don't really need the material. I do think I would prefer to have the materials Wednesday night rather than Thursday night. I still think that a little bit more time is better. I myself am paper oriented, not so much, computer oriented, but I would like to continue the practice, but not on the weeks that it's just a waste of time.
Okay, let me get a consensus on that point first. Is everyone in agreement that in the off weeks when we do not have a regularly scheduled council meeting or special work meeting, that they do not need the packets delivered to their home?
Yeah, in fact, that's
Yes? Mr. Har?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. So we can make that change effective immediately, okay? I do think, and maybe tonight is not the appropriate time to do it, but I do think there's merit to what Mr. Gearbaugh says about beginning to slowly transition for those of us who have no objection to receiving information in this manner to sort of move towards receiving our packets and support materials electronically. And of course, then there's no delay between it being ready and those of us receiving it. And Mr. Burgoyne, we will continue to look into trying to meet as a core group and set the agenda earlier so that council members get their packets as soon as possible. Okay. Maybe the idea of or the notion of providing information electronically can be discussed next week too, when we talk about some goals and objectives. Thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Gearbaugh. Okay, if there's nothing further on this issue, I wanted to talk very briefly because a core group of us met Saturday morning, and by core group I mean myself, the mayor of Ypsilanti, the supervisors for Pittsfield Township and Ypsilanti Townships, and then 2 representatives, although not the mayor, from Ann Arbor City Council with AATA officials at their not corporate office, but at their office in the city of Ann Arbor. And as many of you know, the countywide transit plan died because of its own lack of momentum and because there were a number of municipalities who chose not to support it. However, as a core group, we have discussed pursuing some sort of transportation plan that included sort of the central hub of the county, which would include the municipalities that were represented at Saturday's meeting. So we've tossed around a few ideas very much in the abstract, and I will forward you an email about the event that I'm about to tell you about. But I would hope that if your schedule permits, you make an effort to attend. On the 28th of this month at 5 p.m., and I know that time isn't the best for those of us who were still gainfully employed, but at 5 p.m. at Pittsfield Township Hall, AATA officials will be there with hopefully a majority of the legislative boards of each one of the municipalities that I indicated attended Saturday morning to discuss what our individual goals are, what services and amenities we think would suit and serve our citizens, and then ways in which we can move forward and develop a working plan, and then conversely, a way in which the program can be governed, and then also the way it can be funded. So we did have a very substantive discussion on Saturday and a little bit of debate and back and forth. Our friends in Ann Arbor aren't as enthusiastic about transportation services outside of their corporate limits, and I understand some of their concerns, but we have individuals in each one of the outlying municipalities who would benefit from public transportation, taking a variety of forms. So again, if you're able to attend on the 28th, I would encourage you to do so. If you're running a little bit late because of a work commitment, that's fine, but your perspective is very important. Okay, and I'll forward either later tonight or first thing tomorrow an email I received from AATA encouraging you to attend. And the meeting is open to the public, so anybody who would like to attend that is welcome to do so. If there are no questions, okay, Mr. Gearbaugh, I think we took care of the property maintenance stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think our last, we have 2 more, excuse me. The first one is Mr. Roth distributed a memo with notes from a MML transportation subcommittee he serves on. So, Mr. Roth, do you want to briefly go over your memorandum?
Well, I'm not going to go over it in too much detail other than gives the governor's plan, gives the Senate plan, and this was dated in 3/6. So lots of things should have happened between now and then. But it looks, there's going to be some legislation coming down the road increasing the price of gasoline and possibly sales tax, so they're trying to work the thing out for is increasing revenues. And basically the revenues should be used toward roads. And that's the whole purpose behind it. So exactly how it's going to happen, that's still being discussed. And I just shared with you as far as where they're at this particular time. So it, maybe Mr. Morrow would have more information on this through his offices as it's moving through, but it's running some snags at this point in time, but it may end up being on the ballot. They were hoping to have it on the ballot coming up, but they missed that particular date. There's some discussion about having on a special election for it, and I think they're probably going to realize what that cost is going to be, but it may be a ballot issue coming down for this possibly November. So it's definitely a concern that we have along with it. At that particular meeting, they spent a lot of time about dredging and so on. We're lucky we don't have any Great Lakes bordering our municipality, so it didn't involve us too much with it. But they had some other particular discussions about perhaps in the future of installing cameras for monitoring red lights and that type of stuff. And there's some thoughts about establishing some legislation or regulations on it. So the John, I want to call it Lamachia, is our legislative associate for MML that's monitoring this, and he received a lot of input from us.
Great.
So he knew where he could stand in several of the bills, but lots of it really came to dredging, and with the lower water level in the Great Lakes, has caused some transportation problems, especially with the boats.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. This is very thorough, and I think this information is valuable to council. I would just add from my perspective as an employee of the House of Representatives, this issue is of vital importance, and so far, the governor's plan isn't getting a whole lot of traction. And I'm not, at this point, as concerned with the particulars as much as this state needs revenue to maintain our infrastructure and our roads. And it's amazing to me that there are still many members of the legislature who say we want to continue to study this issue. Oh, I don't know what's to study. Our roads are crumbling and we need resources to repair them. It seems like a no-brainer to me. So I would encourage you, if you attend the Capitol Convention next month, or if you have opportunities to engage with legislators, please encourage them to do something about transportation funding, because again, it's of vital importance, not just in Saline, but throughout our great state. So thank you for sharing this, Mr. Roth. Are there any questions for Mr. Roth? No? Okay, our final discussion item is budget binders. Mr. Burgoyne?
Actually, budget schedules. Do we have a budget schedule?
We do?
Oh, for some reason, I didn't see a copy.
Yeah, I think they went out a while back, I thought. So, but our first work sessions kick off in April with the city council.
Okay, we usually have a budget binder by mid-March.
Similar to last year, the plan is to continue to provide the same information we provided to council. And last year, we provided a binder. We'll provide the second draft in the council office after we've gone through and met with each of the departments and made any revisions we can make. And then the full detailed binder, similar to the red one that Ms. Bennett has, will be in the city council office.
In past years, the council had a binder, and many of the individuals on council did go through it. At some point, there was a discussion that not everybody wanted it, so that was pulled back to some degree. I would prefer to have a binder because I would prefer to look through it. We have about $15 million worth of budgets. Fairly important.
Well, it's absolutely, I don't think there would be any debate amongst the dais about the importance and significance of thoroughly reviewing the budget materials and also our responsibility of adopting a budget. I guess I would rely on council to see what the majority's approach and prerogative is about the distribution of information regarding our upcoming budget negotiations and discussions. I can tell you, I for one thought that the information that was provided and conveyed to us last year was basically perfect. I didn't feel inundated with information. I didn't feel overloaded. And I think having a binder that includes the second draft in the council office is more than appropriate. And of course, if a council member wanted to take that home for a period of time, I wouldn't have any objections with that, just so long as it was communicated to his or her colleagues. But I'd be interested in learning from my colleagues what approach they would like to follow.
I'd like to be informed, but necessarily have a binder in my possession is not necessary.
Okay.
I don't need a binder, but I don't have a problem with anyone in council wanting one.
Okay.
Right, I found last year's approach effective for me and useful in understanding the big picture, and having the binder for reference in the office was adequate.
Yeah, I agree. Last year worked well.
Good.
I prefer to have a binder.
Okay.
So we're happy to do that. We'll provide you that. Once we get the second draft presented, we'll put it out there.
Yep, we'll definitely get you one, okay? Very good. Okay, if there are no other discussion items, we have our second public comment period. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time and make comment or question to City Council. This public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record.
Mary Hess. I would hope that when you're talking about highways, that Michigan has the highest load limit per axle. And I think that that would be one thing to address. It's from the old auto factories, so they could have more weight on the roads. The other thing is, I was wondering, when you're talking about ordinances, last fall I got into ordinances regarding disabled vehicles on our streets and also working on disabled vehicles on our streets. And I had understood that it was illegal. Well, the business that's on South Harris is in a business area and not in a residential area. So therefore, the two ordinances were not enforceable because although you cannot have a disabled vehicle in a residential area or work on a disabled vehicle in a residential area, it does not comply to a business zoning. And I would hope that maybe the ordinances could also include, it is a collector street, and I would think that it's important that our roads be not worked on in vehicles. The other thing is that I got to speak with Mr. Campbell regarding the sidewalks. Last fall, of course, I brought up the ordinance of you shall repair broken sidewalks, and there were about 4 I brought up, and the mayor has assured me the one on North Ann Arbor Street is going to be fixed this year. That's in the township area, and a couple others. The other one is the business that is on South Ann Arbor, Phillips. I know that from what Mr. Campbell said, he is hoping to purchase another place and probably sell this one. And I'm wondering, because the sidewalks are definitely dangerous, that at least a notice be sent to them prior to this sidewalk survey, so that in case he might sell his business, that the next property owner, of course, is put on notice that these are going to have to be repaired. I was wondering if you have any idea when the sidewalk survey is going to be done, or when some of the sidewalks, the poorer ones, are going to be repaired this year. And the other thing is parking lot 1. While we're talking about Main Street goes for all of downtown. On Saturday, I went to the restaurant downtown, I forget the little restaurant, and there was no parking. And then it kind of snowed a little bit, so there was snow. Okay, at 4 o'clock I went to Dan's, and there was snow on 5 vehicles, and they had not been moved. It would be nice if we could get the 2-hour enforced somehow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hess.
Seems like this is the night for reports. I'm here to present the annual report for the Historical Society, and I'll try to do it in 3 minutes. I hope you'll take time to read the entire report, but I'd like to highlight a few things for council and the extended audience. In Dean Grebb's message, you'll note that we've completed the exterior painting of the Rentschler farmhouse, and we've finished the exterior restoration of the caboose. So there's those ongoing maintenance things, and the maintenance of the properties is always ongoing. Also, on July 20th, we're planning an event at the farm to celebrate the 150th birthday of Henry Ford. And there will be a Henry Ford impersonator there. I'm told that he's very good. You'd hardly know that Henry wasn't there, so it probably will be an enjoyable event. On the second page, the financial report from Agnes Dykman, total income for the year was $28,141, and expenses were $26,601, so the society moves a fair amount of money around. Depot report shows a detailed report of the caboose restoration, and what's up next for repair is the livery barn, which now needs painting. On the cemetery report, I think it's interesting to note that the oldest tombstone found so far by Bob Lane and his group of dedicated people that go out there and look at tombstones is that of Dr. Philip N. Draper, died December 15, 1828. So, and they have been working hard on cataloging tombstones. There is a report on the antique show and garage sale and all the education programs that Jim Roth has arranged for us, and shows the numbers of people that attended last year to those. Acquisition and permanent collections, 129 additional artifacts were cataloged in 2012, making a total of 2,868 items with an approximate value of $163,000. And Agnes Dykman and her committee have been working very hard to get everything cataloged. A lot of things had piled up over the years that were never cataloged and tagged. So that's a big job, and it's slowly being accomplished. Volunteer hours, of course, not all of them get reported, but 4,544 volunteer hours were reported at $20.07 per hour. It means our volunteers contributed $91,198 to our local community. So you'll see that the Historical Society and the city have an ongoing partnership in a very vibrant and active historical museum effort that I think is reflects well on the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate the report. Are there any other public comments? No? Okay. Then is there any other business to come before Saline City Council this evening? I would just acknowledge, because the previous speaker referenced the sidewalk survey, we do not have a date in mind as to when that survey will be completed. However, it is still a goal of the city and the council to complete that, and we'll definitely keep you in the loop in regards to when that is planned and when we expect to have results. So upcoming meetings, we have a special meeting next Monday with staff to discuss goals and objectives. Then we have a regular council meeting on the 1st with a budget work meeting beginning at 6, and then a regular council meeting on the 25th with another special work meeting devoted to the budget beginning at 6 p.m. We already excused the absence of Mr. Rhodes, so I would seek a motion to adjourn now at 9:07 p.m.
So moved.
It's moved by Mr. Gearbaugh to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Peters. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. This meeting's adjourned.